If you look at Microsoft and Google and Palo Alto Networks, which claim that they collect all this data into their data lakes, they only collect the data into data puddles that don't talk to each other,
Yep.
and it
Yep.
just,
Yep.
it doesn't work.
Yep.
So that's what Cylake is about. I started Cylake because the cybersecurity industry needs a new architecture
Yes.
where all the data gets collected into one place,
Yep.
into one data lake,
Yep.
and then all the different cybersecurity functions.
Welcome to Inside Cybersecurity with Cylake. My name is René Bonvanie, and I am heading up marketing at the company. Today, I'm joined by Nir Zuk, founder and CEO of Cylake, and previously the founder of Palo Alto Networks. 17 years ago, I had the pleasure of starting to work with him on what would become eventually the largest cybersecurity company in the world. And when he had the idea for Cylake, I didn't hesitate to join him again and come out of retirement. In this episode, we're talking about why Cylake exists, what Nir believes the industry is getting wrong right now, and why AI, data scale, and sovereignty are changing what cybersecurity looks like for a growing number of organizations. So Nir, what made you look at the industry and the current landscape and think, it's time to change?
You know, René, I've been fighting with the entire cybersecurity industry throughout my career, where the cybersecurity industry has this tendency of trying to solve every little problem with another product, with another set of products, with another market. And my approach throughout the last 32 years, since I started building the Checkpoint product, has been, no, it has to be a platform. It has to be one thing. And when I started with Checkpoint in 94, there was no cybersecurity market, right? Me and Gil Shved and Shlomo Kramer and Gonen Fink and a few others, we created the cybersecurity market. But then because Checkpoints was focusing on operating margins and not on investing in R&D, it let the rest of the market create identity and URL filtering and anti-malware and sandboxing and so on as separate things. And then we started Palo Alto Networks to fix that, to consolidate the entire market around one thing, which works really, really well.
Oh, we sure did.
Company in the space today, and then we expanded to endpoint and cloud security and SOC and identity and so on. Well, turns out that the market has been running away with other products, products that focus around data. So AI security and data security, DSPM, DLP, and IoT security and different forms of cloud security and SaaS security, what's called CASB and SOC products and so on. They all now operate with a lot of data. They collect data. They provide visibility to the data. They look for attacks within the data, hopefully respond. And sometimes they even use the data to suggest policy changes. They each do it in their own domain. And it's running away from us. A typical organization today believes that most of the data sits in the SIEM, in the SOC. Most of their cybersecurity related data, where in reality, it's maybe 5%. Much more data sits with their EDR vendor and NDR vendor and UEBA and so on.
In those individual puddles.
And with the different cloud security vendors and SaaS security vendor and API security vendors and IoT security vendors and OT security vendors and AI security vendors and so on. There's so much data sitting out there in puddles and so little sits in the SIEM, which is supposed to be where all the data is, that we're in trouble as an industry because those products are operating with very limited set of data. And these are products that base their operations on data, which means that they're very, very, very far from optimal. And I can give you a few examples.
Why not?
For example, IoT security. So when you talk to IoT security vendors, for example, those that focus on medical devices, but there are others. There's those that focus more on industrial environments and so on, and of course, IT environments. let's talk about those that focus on medical environments. So when you talk to them as a hospital and you say, okay, how can you secure my CT and MRI and so on?
The scanners.
The scanners, they'll
Yep.
tell you, well, we look at the network traffic and
Yep.
we try to prevent malware from getting there. But mostly what we do is we collect network data and then we will look for abnormal communications.
Yep.
We will look for command and control connections. We will look for the CT or the MRI talking to the wrong places. That's how they do their work.
Mm.
And then when you ask them, but wait, what about the operator
Yep.
of the CT
Yep.
that's using a Windows machine?
Yep.
How do you make sure that that operator doesn't have malware on their machine
Yep.
that's now going to give the subject
Yep.
100 times the radiation?
Yes. Yeah.
And,
It'd be
and-
terrible. Yeah.
and the answer is, well, that's what you have endpoint security
Yeah.
vendors for.
Somebody
right?
else's problem.
It's somebody else's problem. But that somebody else doesn't know medical devices
Nope.
and doesn't focus on it. It's a general purpose solution.
Yep.
So when you buy an IoT security solution today in medical environments,
Mm.
you get a portion of what you need. You don't get everything.
Nope.
Another example is AI security vendors.
Mm.
AI security vendors need to see, for example, the prompts.
Yep.
The only place to really see the prompts is
Yep.
inside the browser.
In the browser, yeah. Yep.
But they don't sit inside the browser.
Nope.
It's the talents of the world, which is part of Palo Alto Networks
Yep.
now, and the islands of the world
Yep.
that sit inside the browser. And they also need to see the endpoint because they need to
Of
know
course.
what kind of MCP servers you're running on
Yeah.
the endpoint and what kind of API calls.
Yeah.
But they don't sit there. That's where the endpoint security vendors of the world sit.
Right.
So how can the AI security vendors claim that they do AI security? It's not clear.
No. No.
So it turns out that and we can go forever. We don't have a lot of time, I guess, but we can show how each and every solution that you buy today in the cybersecurity industry is using just a portion of the data that they need.
Yeah.
And there's no way for them to get that.
No.
It's even true with the large vendors. If you look at Microsoft and Google and Palo Alto Networks, which claim that they collect all this data into their data lakes, they only collect the data into data puddles that don't talk to
Mhm.
each other,
Yep.
and it
Yep.
just
Yep.
it doesn't work.
Yep.
So that's what Cylake is about. I started Cylake because the cybersecurity industry needs a new architecture
Yes.
where all the data gets collected into one place,
Yep.
into one data lake,
Yep.
and then all the different cybersecurity functions,
Yep.
all the different SOC functions and IoT security and OT security and the
Mhm.
different data security functions and the different cloud security functions and so on,
Yep.
they all work on the entire set of data that is collected once.
Now that is an incredible assumption, right? Where you believe that at the core, right, the architecture is broken because everything sits across multiple data sources. Now there's another assumption, right, about the cloud itself, right, and that the cloud could be the place where all of this could be done. So what do you think about that?
This cannot be done in the cloud.
Okay.
You want the longer answer?
I want a longer answer. Yes,
The
I do.
longer answer is the cloud is too expensive.
Okay.
And the way you build
Mhm.
applications in the cloud,
Mhm.
if you're a SaaS vendor,
Mhm.
like a cybersecurity vendor trying to deliver
Mhm.
your cybersecurity function or functions from the cloud, the way you build them is you look at the pricing model
Yeah.
of your cloud provider, whether it's AWS or Azure or GCP, and then you adjust your products based on that.
Yeah.
And then 3 months later, they change their pricing model, and then you have to adjust your products based on that.
Yeah.
So it is the pricing model
Mhm.
of the cloud provider
Yeah.
that is going to determine what you can and cannot do.
Yeah.
And how much it's going to cost you and what architecture you can actually use.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't work.
Right.
We need something that is much more consistent.
Yep.
We need something that is cheaper,
Mhm.
that is predictable, and that engineers can use as they want and not as they are forced by a pricing model.
Yeah.
So I strongly believe that this data lake that I'm talking about, the data lake that is necessary in order to rebuild the cybersecurity industry around a single data lake,
Mm.
that data lake has to run on-premise.
On-premise. Yep.
I also believe it has to be delivered in hardware.
Yep.
I don't think that as an industry, we have a good experience in providing software that you install on your own hardware
Yeah.
as a customer.
No.
It has to come in appliances, whether it's one appliance or tens of racks.
Yeah.
It has to come in a
Yeah.
form of an appliance.
Yeah.
Of course, with the value being the software running on the appliance.
Yeah. Yeah, that in itself is an incredible change, right, in architecture. Because for the last 20 years, we looked at the cloud as the place to do this. Cloud has become a black box. It's become not only a black box from the technology perspective, but also from the pricing perspective, as you say. And it's my belief that AI is the next black box, right? Where again, if you rely on AI running somewhere else and on your premises, right, it becomes very hard to plan and very hard to understand, right, what it does. Do you feel the same about AI as you feel about the cloud?
Yeah, of course. First, the pricing of AI in the cloud is extremely expensive and is changing all the
Mm,
time.
mm,
I've built in the past products that used specifically generative AI. I mean,
mm,
machine learning is something else.
yep,
Machine learning, by the way, is much more useful for cybersecurity, but there are things where Gen AI
yeah,
is useful.
yep,
And every time we've tried to build in previous lives
yeah,
Gen AI based solutions,
mhm,
we ended up not shipping them
yeah,
because of the cost.
yep,
And that was before Anthropic changed their pricing
right,
model and before everybody's realizing that they're
yep,
not charging enough
yep,
and before um, all the shortages that are happening right now that are increasing the cloud and the AI costs and so
yeah,
on.
yeah,
It just doesn't make any
yeah,
sense. You can't use Gen AI
yep,
in the cloud and still charge customers what you charge today for
mm,
the non-Gen AI version of the
yep,
product.
yep, yeah. Now, at what so I couldn't agree more, right? These are things that we have to take care of. Now, why did you want to take care of this, right? So what made you think, "Oh, this is a great idea. This is my thinking to I'm gonna start a new company doing this." What was that moment where you thought, this is my problem to solve?"
Uh, because if I'm not going to do it, nobody else is going to do it.
Okay.
I mean, we don't need to work, right?
No.
I mean, we need to work for our
Mental sanity.
mental sanity, but we can do other things. Look, someone has to do it.
Yep.
And then it's fun. It's
Yep.
fun to rebuild all of cybersecurity all over again.
Yeah.
And it's fun to assemble the team that we reassembled
Yep.
here. You mentioned in the beginning that you retired, and
Yep.
we have a few others here that retired, and I brought them back,
Yep.
and
Yep.
we're going to do it,
Yep.
and we're going to build the largest cybersecurity vendor in the world
Yep.
again.
Now, starting fresh, right, has a lot of challenges, right? But besides the issues of, oh, it's the puddles and the lack of a lake and the cloud, I've heard you say things about the industry is also a terrible reputation, right, for quality and for being available, right, into its customers. So are there other things that you're trying to do right this time around, right, that you saw go wrong in the past?
First, we talked about the cloud already
Mm,
and how the cost
yeah,
of running a service from the cloud
yeah,
is forcing vendors to silently
yeah.
reduce functionality.
Mm,
You don't know that it's happening,
no.
but they are doing it. Vendors are reducing functionality without you knowing about it
Mm,
because of the cost
yeah,
of the cloud services that keep going up.
yeah, yeah,
So that's the first thing that the industry is doing.
yeah.
The second thing that the industry is doing is, I think I mentioned that before, is they're building solutions that don't work very well
Mm,
because
yeah,
of lack of data.
yeah.
And they're not telling you that.
No. The industry is also very fickle, right, about availability. They don't really have a good answer, right, to outages and to issues. And is that something that also persuaded you to build things on premises?
I'm somewhat worried about availability of products in the cloud, and it goes back to cost.
Mm,
I'm more worried about the cybersecurity
yeah,
of the products that
yeah,
are delivered from the cloud.
yeah, yeah.
When you look at
Understandable.
all the cybersecurity vendors in the world, actually, we look at all the vendors in the world, they have bugs.
Yep, they do.
Even cybersecurity vendors have CVEs
Yep, of course.
in their
Yeah,
products. And to think that somehow a large cybersecurity vendor that has thousands, literally thousands of engineers
mm,
working on cloud solutions can build those cloud solutions in such a way that they're not vulnerable,
mhm,
I think is a little bit innocent.
yep,
Unlike on-prem products like firewalls
yep,
or products that you buy from Microsoft, which
yeah,
is also a cybersecurity vendor, so on, where you can see the CVE and you can feel the CVE and you know that someone took over your
mm,
device because you see it in the logs, which happened to
yep,
a lot of
yeah, yeah,
customers out there multiple times
yep,
with multiple vendors. In the cloud, you don't see that.
no,
And most organizations out there believe that they can trust their cloud security vendor
Mm.
just because it's a cybersecurity vendor. So of course they're
Yep.
great.
Yep.
Let's ignore
Yep.
the CVs here.
Yeah.
And yeah, the thousands of engineers that they have are special engineers. They
Yep.
don't have vulnerabilities. They don't
Nope.
write vulnerabilities.
Nope.
And I just think that it's
It's naive to think.
naive to think that.
Yes.
I use the word innocent. Naive.
Yeah.
It's very naive to think that.
Yep.
And when you run something on premise
Yep.
and you have tens of racks
Mm.
running your cybersecurity infrastructure, and there's one IP address with logically one fiber, maybe there are multiple ones for high availability,
Yep.
and you can block that IP address
Yep.
from being able to communicate to the outside and from
Mm.
getting any communications that you don't want from
Yep.
within the organization, you control your destiny.
Yes. Yep. That-
And I think that by moving cybersecurity back on-prem, we're going to get a much more secure
Yes.
cybersecurity product.
Yep. Now, you didn't do this alone. Because you spoke about engineers, you have to recruit a whole bunch of really, really smart engineers. So tell me a bit about the team that you build to start Cylake.
Sure. So first, as I said, Cylake is an appliance delivered solution. You need appliance experts. Those are very hard to find.
Yes.
People don't build, especially in cybersecurity, they don't build appliances anymore.
No.
Today, every cybersecurity entrepreneur
Yep.
just goes to the cloud, builds a product in 4 months, releases the product, hires tons of salespeople,
Yep.
and
Yep.
sells the company. Building appliances is different.
Mm.
So we need a team. I needed a team that knows how to build appliances.
Yep.
The only place in the world, maybe there are 2 places in the world where they still build hardware and appliances. One of them is here in Silicon Valley in the
Yep.
South Bay,
Yep.
around Arista and Cisco and other companies that
Mhm.
still build appliances, and Palo Alto Networks.
Yep.
And the other place might be in Seattle, where
Yes.
they build appliances for Azure and AWS. So it has to be done here.
Mhm.
I hired a few people that worked with me in the past that know how to build appliances, that
Yep.
build appliances that run in hundreds of thousands of organizations and flawlessly. So that team is here. Most of it came from Palo Alto Networks. This is a data project.
Yep.
So we need data experts. Luckily, we have a lot of big data companies around us, both companies like Databricks,
Yep.
as well as companies that internally have a lot of data, like
Yep.
Netflix
Yep.
and others.
Yep.
So we hire people from there where they're data experts. Of course, we need cybersecurity experts.
Yep.
Luckily, there are quite a few cybersecurity companies around us, and
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
some of them. And we need machine learning experts.
Yeah.
Luckily, we can find them here. We need Gen AI experts. Luckily, there are
Yeah.
tons of them in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And in Silicon Valley, we hire those. So there is a big team of engineers in very diversified.
Yeah, and let's not forget
areas.
Endpoint. Right?
Yeah.
Endpoint was also
And of course, endpoint. Yeah. So we haven't talked about endpoint. Turns out that endpoint is the most important source of information when it comes to building a cybersecurity platform around data.
Yeah.
Because everything happens on the endpoint.
Yeah.
When you collect data from the network or you collect data from application logs and so on, you collect a derivative, an approximation of what's really going on. So you have to be on the endpoint. You have to be on user endpoints. You have to be on servers. You have to be in VMs. You have to be on containers or container hosts.
Yeah.
You have to look at Lambda functions and so on. You have to be on endpoints.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to be on endpoints. Very, very difficult to collect data from the endpoint itself, system calls, what's called EDR.
Yeah.
Collect data from the browser, where a lot of things are happening.
Yeah.
Collect files from the endpoint, because the files are what you're trying to protect, and you need to see them, and so on.
Yeah.
So luckily, one of my good old buddies is Udi Shamir, a co-founder of Cylake. He was a founder of SentinelOne, where he built the endpoint security solution. He built the Palo Alto Networks endpoint security solution.
Yeah.
These are the 2 solutions that consistently get the number 1 and number 2 places in all third-party tests.
Yep.
And he's building the endpoint solution here with the team that he brought.
Now, not only do you need great folks to build it, you also need good investors, right? So what have you done, right, as far as investors, and how do you work with your investors?
So I often get asked, why didn't you fund it yourself?
Yeah.
You made so much money at
Yeah.
Palo Alto Networks. And the answer is you can't do anything yourself.
Mm.
You need people.
Mm.
And we talked about the engineers that we need. We need great marketing people like you, René. And we have a great HR person
Mm.
here and a great CFO
Yep.
and so on. Investors are also very important.
Yep.
They're important because number one, when you need more money, they're always there.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, something
Mhm.
like that might require much more money than we've raised so far.
Yeah.
Investors have great connections
Mm.
that we might not have. We have already seen our investors bring us great customers
Yep.
for design partners and so on. We have also already seen our investors bring us great people
Yep.
to hire.
Yeah.
And great advice.
Yeah.
So our investors include a lot of the original investors in Palo Alto Networks,
Yep.
which I've worked with. They're great investors. They're great people to work with.
Yep.
I've been with them through good times and bad times, and I know that they behave
Yep.
really well during good times and even better during bad times.
Yeah.
So Ashim Chandna from Greylock,
Yep.
Jim Getz,
Yep.
that used to be at Sequoia, invested in personal capacity, Mark McLaughlin, who was the previous CEO of Palo Alto Networks, and a few other
Yep.
industry
Yep.
alumni.
Let's go back to data and more specifically in the context of sovereignty, right? Because when you bring things back on premises, right, there is certainly your thesis is first and foremost a cybersecurity advantage, right? But there's also a sovereignty advantage, right? We hear more and more organizations say, well, I really cannot or do not want to bring this data, this endpoint data, for example, into a public setting. Right? I need to keep it on premises. So how did that come about? Right? How did you also conceive that the sovereignty was going to be important?
So first, when you build a company, you want to address 100% of the market. It's hard to address 100% of the market from the get-go, and it's hard to compete against
Yep.
existing vendors. It's always better if you have this angle
Yep.
that you can take initially,
Yep.
so that your go-to-market is going to be much easier.
Mm.
If you remember, at Palo Alto Networks, it was around App ID.
Yep.
Around you're using a lot of applications, you're only protecting web and email. Let us show you how you can protect other applications.
Yep.
That was our go-to-market. We had a better firewall for web and email,
Yeah.
but that's not what we went with.
No.
We went with,
Yep.
you're only protecting certain percent of the traffic, here's the rest of it. You have to do that. And companies that do that do really, really well. So here at Cylake, after we sat down and said, okay, the world needs a new cybersecurity architecture that's centered around data. And that has to run on premise. It cannot be done in the cloud.
Mm-mm.
The next question is there any go-to-market advantage that gives us?
Mm.
And the answer is, well, there are about 30% of the market in terms of money, not in terms
Mhm.
of number of customers,
Yep.
which is struggling at protecting their entire infrastructure with cloud-delivered solutions.
Mm.
Either because they're not connected to the internet at all,
Completely air gapped.
completely air-gapped,
Yep.
military,
Mm.
Intel,
Mm.
Homeland Security, 911 services, utilities,
Yep.
power generation, water,
Mhm.
pipelines, and so on.
Yep.
They cannot protect a big part of their infrastructure.
Yep.
Certainly not with modern cybersecurity solutions.
No.
They can run
Yep.
25-year-old products like Splunk and McAfee,
Yeah.
but they cannot
Yeah, that makes no sense.
run anything that was built in the last 25 years.
Yep.
So that's the one
Yep.
set of customers where we have no competition.
Yep.
And the go-to-market is much easier. Another set of customers are those that they protect some of their infrastructure with modern solutions, but there is a big part of their infrastructure
Yeah.
they cannot protect because of regulatory reasons.
Right.
We see it in healthcare, we see it in defense contractors, we see it in financial services,
Mm.
we see it in a few other areas.
Yep.
And then over the last few years, we've seen more and more geopolitical
Yeah.
concerns
Yeah.
around specifically using US SaaS
Yeah.
and or US cloud.
Yeah.
And of course, the worst is US SaaS service delivered from a US cloud.
Yes.
Because even if you have data residency requirements and you're in Germany or France or Netherlands or the Middle East or India or wherever,
Yeah.
data residency is one thing. It's easy to
Yeah.
store your data in a GCP instance or a
Yeah.
AWS or Azure
Yeah.
instance in a specific
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
But having the US courts and the US government
Yeah.
be able to affect you
Yeah.
is
Right. Subpoena the
another
data or the
level.
infrastructure. Yeah. Yeah.
So we've seen more and more of that over the years,
Mm.
and it's exploding now.
Yeah.
And we've talked to quite a few US companies
Mm.
that are operating
Yeah.
and serving customers in those countries
Yeah.
where they're telling us, yeah, we have a serious issue.
Yeah.
We cannot ship their data to the US. We cannot run it on US infrastructure. We need something on-prem.
Yeah.
So there's suddenly a very big part of the market
Yeah.
where for us as a startup, the competition is Splunk
Yeah.
and McAfee, both of which went to
Yeah.
retire in peace in Cisco, and I don't even know where McAfee is now. They call themselves
Trellix.
Trellix, whatever that is. So, of course, that's our go-to market.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
One day, the world will realize that what we're building is the right architecture, not
Yes.
just for that 30% of the market,
Yeah.
but for 100% of the
Yeah.
market.
Yeah.
And there will always be the customers that prefer to buy from the cloud. Look, it's not easy
No.
necessarily to buy on-prem
Yeah.
solutions. First, you need a place to put the appliances,
Yeah.
and that's not always easy. And second, you do have to deal with software updates. There are things you cannot do on-prem, you can do in the cloud. So we're not going to have 100% of the market.
No.
And customers will continue to consume cybersecurity services from the cloud. And
Yep.
we'll have to show them that
Yep. Yeah.
there are many things that, when done on premise,
Yeah.
give you a huge advantage. And at the end of the day, better cybersecurity
Right.
outcomes.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I have one more question about data.
Yeah.
One of the things that most of the cybersecurity companies did so far is do some they put logs and some telemetry, right, into these puddles, but not necessarily end user data, right? And that, of course, gets you into a lot of privacy and governance and sovereignty. But why would you collect all that end user data? Do you have an example of how that could be beneficial to cybersecurity?
Sure. So specifically, it turns out that cybersecurity can benefit from seeing all the files
Mm.
that end users might have on their endpoints.
Yeah.
All the PDFs and all the PowerPoints and all the Excels
Yeah.
and so on,
Yeah.
as well as all the structured and unstructured data that sits in
Right.
corporate
Yeah.
servers and databases and so on. Why? Because at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to protect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to think that cybersecurity vendors can protect something that they've never seen,
Yeah.
which they've never seen,
Yep.
is again naive.
Yep.
But that's what the cybersecurity industry is doing today.
Yeah.
They're trying to protect your crown jewels
Yep.
without ever seeing your crown jewels. So that's at a high level.
Yeah.
If we go one level deep and we talk about the technical
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
aspects of it, so of course there's DLP.
Mm.
So to do DLP, we need to see all the data that we're trying to protect. And if it's a cloud DLP, you'll need to send all your sensitive data to the cloud,
Yeah.
and that doesn't happen.
No.
More importantly, it turns out that to do attack detection really well, the one thing that works best is something called machine learning.
Yep.
And machine learning needs something called features, meaning it needs to know about a lot of things that happen in the infrastructure.
Yep.
And you might have heard about how you can take different events that happen in different areas of the infrastructure and stitch them together into a timeline.
Mm.
A few vendors out there that sell to the SOC are doing that. And it turns out that that's what you need to do, or part of what you need to do in order to run machine learning.
Yep.
So someone opened the file, someone downloaded the file from Office 365, an Excel spreadsheet, to their endpoint. And then a few days later, they opened it and they copied a few cells and
Yep.
pasted those cells into another file,
Yep.
another Excel or a
Yep.
PowerPoint presentation.
Yep.
And then a few days later, they emailed that PowerPoint presentation and so on.
Right.
You want to know about that timeline.
Yeah.
You want to know about it in order to create what's called the data lineage.
Yep.
And to show it and,
Yep.
and work
Yep.
on it. And that doesn't happen today.
No.
Because in order to do that, you need to be on all the endpoints. The data security vendors are not sitting on the endpoint. They
Nope.
don't see the copy and paste. They don't see activity in the browser if it happens in the browser. But that's one issue. You need it for data lineage.
Yeah.
But more importantly, you want to know that the events that happened at Office 365 and the events that you saw happening when the file came in and those cells were copied, and the events that happened a few days later where the file was emailed and you saw that going on, you want to know that they are related.
Yep.
To know that they are related, the only relationship you can find is this data.
Yep. Yep.
And to do that, you need to keep the data.
Yep.
So I need to keep those Excel cells that were copied in my database as a cybersecurity vendor. Well, I don't keep them. I keep a function of them that is somewhat reversible. So it's not something you want to send to the cloud unless you want to still, again, send all your
Yep.
content, everything that all the data that you have in your infrastructure to the cloud.
Yeah.
So I need to keep it. It's not going to happen in the cloud.
Nope.
And I need to keep it if I want to create these long timelines and not see 3 different timelines and try to run machine learning on 3 different timelines. So at the end of the day, it's again, security outcomes.
Yep.
Security outcomes are much better. Cybersecurity outcomes are much better when I see all your data and you allow me to keep some of it in my databases. Not going to happen in the cloud.
Nope.
Easily done on premise. When it's running in your data center and there's again one IP address, one logical connection that you can block, you can control, you can say whatever comes in never comes out.
Like a diode.
Like a diode, and we can operate in air-gapped environments even. Then you don't have that concerns. You have a conversation with a customer and you just move on. You don't spend the next 3 months on convincing the customer through legal agreements that no, we keep your data safe.
Right. Awesome. I told you one more question, but I do want to ask you, any final thoughts that you want to share with the audience before we sign off?
I think that it's time for a new cybersecurity architecture. I think that's the important outcome here. We are experiencing today subpar, very poor cybersecurity outcomes because of the wrong architecture that was created over the last 10 years or 15 years around cybersecurity functions that are based on data. We need a new cybersecurity architecture. It has to be done in one data lake. I mean, that's something we haven't talked about. You worked at Oracle for many years. You know that joins don't work. Certainly not joins across different data puddles.
Especially Cartesian joins.
Joins don't work. You cannot say, okay, I'm going to have the EDR data here. And
no. That will never work.
I'm going to have that data here and I'm going to do a join.
No.
That doesn't work.
No.
We haven't talked about how we'll do it some other podcasts, how you need to be really the ingester of all the data and so on. It just doesn't work. We need a completely new architecture, single data lake. It cannot be done in the cloud. It has to run on-prem. It has to be delivered in hardware because you cannot install software on 10 racks of random hardware. And Cylake is doing it, and it will be available next year, early next year. And we'll show the world how cybersecurity needs to be done in 2027.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nir. And thanks for joining us on today's episode of Inside Cybersecurity with Cylake. We'll see you back soon.